You're listening to another episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and if I know anything that goes on in the industry, which a lot of times, a lot of the industry jokes and in-jokes and things online, I miss. But with this one, I know it's a little bit of a hot topic right now, but we are ready to get to the bottom of it. Of course, I am talking about the National Roller Coaster Museum and Archives in Plainview, Texas. And there's a lot of people online who think they know everything that goes on at the National Roller Coaster Museum. They're like, that's a private collection. It's never going to open. All these negative things that just aren't true. So rather than listen to the people online who think they know everything, I wanted to bring on a couple of NRCMA board members who do know everything that is going on with the National Roller Coaster Museum and Archives. So first, I'm going to bring in Kris Rowberry. Kris does business development for Ride Entertainment. He is a board member. He is also a past Coaster 101 podcast guest. So Kris, welcome back.
Great to be back on here, Andrew.
Awesome. And then not for Kris to be outdone, but also joining us for the first time on the Coaster 101 podcast, we have the principal and chief business officer of 3DX Scenic. That is Mark Rosenzweig. Mark, welcome to the Coaster 101 podcast.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having us tonight.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Mark, we've had Kris on the show, and we've kind of learned a little bit more about Kris's background, his time in ACE, his time with Ride Entertainment, a little bit of his work with the National Roller Coaster Museum. But we got to learn a little bit more about you. Like, tell us, you're a 20-year industry vet. Feel free to hit us with some of the highlights. Tell us about who Mark Rosenzweig is.
Sure. Well, much like Kris and a lot of the our generation in the industry, I was pretty much born into a family that was fans of theme parks. I grew up going with I'm from Long Island, New York. I grew up going with my father to Coney Island, Rye Playland, Six Flags Great Adventure, Adventureland on Long Island. Those are kind of my childhood parks growing up. And then just followed a passion from college and got a job at Michigan's Adventure the summer of 1998. That was my entry into the industry. And along with a very talented team up there when the park was still family owned, I opened Shivering Timbers, which many know it's a world-renowned wooden coaster. But back in 1998, it was like the world stopped in Muskegon, Michigan. That was the ride. There was never before a wooden coaster quite like that just went on for basically a mile, and it was a thrill to kind of dip my toes in the industry for the first time in operations. I then moved back to New York, and I got a job at Zamperla in sales and marketing, and I worked there from 1999 through 2006. Visited and sold rides to many family-owned parks and carnivals and the like, and then moved down to Maryland where I worked at Ride Entertainment. And you could see how small our industry is because Kris is now basically has the role that I had at Ride Entertainment, selling rides for various manufacturers that they represent. At one point, I also ran Sky Coaster, which I'm sure everybody, fans of the industry know. It's a one-of-a-kind thrill ride, that still exists on six continents, as far as I'm aware. And I got to travel around the world certifying operators for that, and it was fantastic. And then in 2020, I switched gears again and moved out to Cincinnati, Ohio. So first time off the coast, and took a sales position with 3DX Scenic. I kind of got to know the team and saw that they basically work kind of with a different sector of the industry, whereas I used to work mainly with operations and the GMs of the park and ride selection. This is the theming and scenic side. So whether it's sets for shows or sign packages, portals, fiberglass sculptures, ride vehicles, you name it. So I immediately dove in, and then was very fortunate in late 2023 to have the opportunity to become co-owner of the company. And myself and my business partner, Matt Waldenmeyer, who had been with the company for over 20 years at the time, started as a carpenter and worked his way up. So, I'm not allowed to operate a power tool. I just handle the sales and marketing side of things. And he is MacGyver and does all that. So it's a perfect setup for us. And yeah, I'm thrilled to have, had almost a quarter century career in the industry that I truly love. I'm really blessed and lucky and fortunate, just like Kris, to work in this amazing industry. And Yeah, I'm still crazy. I still go to parks when I'm not working, so I'm not ashamed to say that. I live 5 minutes from Kings Island, so I feel like I've ridden the beast quite a bit this summer, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's sort of my release. So having the park in my backyard for myself and my kids and my family has been great. So that's pretty much
I,
it.
I love it. And before we were talking, I've got to give a quick shout out to one of 3DX Scenic's most recent projects. You got to tell me a little bit about this 50-foot nutcracker that you guys are installing over in Utah.
Oh, it's just an average every day. In fact, today we were having an internal company meeting, our quarter 3 meeting, and just discussing. Anyone want to guess what the oversized iconic thing we're going to make next year is? Because last year it was giant food items for Holiday World at Good Gravy, and this year we did a giant pirate ship with a parrot, and so of course the logical next step is to build a 5-story tall German nutcracker, because why not? And yeah, it's really going to be something else. For those who haven't been to Lagoon, because it is somewhat of a remote market, it is a crown jewel operation. When I say
Absolutely.
that, I don't say it lightly. It's not like, oh, we're just talking about this park, so I'm going to put them up on a pedestal. Anyone that has visited will know it is as close to a European style park that we have in America. The level of attention to detail and theming and just the little touches that they put on standard stock rides is just not seen. Parks here just don't do it. They can't justify the budget, whatever the reason is. It's just something else, and the operations are amazing. The team is passionate. It's family run, which I love that, because it's a trolley park. It's well over 100 years old, and they have rides ranging from Cannibal, the high tech rides, to an over 100-year-old wooden roller coaster, a classic John Miller design that's still running today. So, and then you pepper in all the flat rides, and so yes, this going back to the Nutcracker. It's one of the giant S&S Scream and Swings, the 40-seat version that you see at Cedar Point and SeaWorld San Antonio, Busch Gardens Tampa. And this scenic sculpture is going to conceal one of the 2 air tanks that sits at the base of the A-frame. So it's just a wild project, but the theme will tie into the adjacent beer garden that is right next to the ride. And then the whole ride is lifted up on a platform, kind of like the Wave Swinger at Disney California Adventure, to save space in the midway and add additional presence. The thing's going to look just like a monster size ride, for a park that their tallest coaster is 200 feet, but on the south end of the park, there really isn't anything really over 110, 115 feet tall. So this thing's going to really change the landscape over there.
And the Nutcracker is going to completely change the skyline. So we love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you talk about Gold Star operations. We got to talk about the National Roller Coaster Museum, because again, I'm talking to 2 board members of the National Roller Coaster Museum, which was established back as a organization back in 2009. Is that correct, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so here we are, 2025. The National Roller Coaster Museum has been in the news recently. I know you guys just acquired 4 pretty marquee coasters that have closed for the last little bit. You got Nighthawk, you got Time Warp, or Tomb Raider, the Volare at Canada's Wonderland. You got, oh no, you got
Come
King
on.
Ka. You got King Ka, which Coaster 101 donated to.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Mark that down, Chris. And then
Yes.
the 4th one. Help
Come
me.
on.
Just help me, please.
Where do I live?
That's a great question. Lava Bora in Texas.
Boom.
Got it. See, I'm on it. I figured it out. That's the one I hadn't ridden. And I was like,
Well, you definitely ain't riding it now.
that's a good point. I'll come see the train eventually.
See,
Yeah,
my hint was going to be, what is the most unlikely of Olympic sports for the country of Jamaica to have entered, but that's fine.
Some of us are better at marketing than others, Mark.
Okay.
I love it. So let's go back to 2009, right? You guys came together as a board, as an organization, and decided, hey, we want to create a museum for roller coasters. Tell me the backstory here.
Well, the backstory is that this has been an idea that goes back all the way to 1978, when one of ACE's co-founders, Richard Munch, was a big historian. He's always been a big historian, and so he wanted to be able to preserve this history, which he was kind of living through a cool renaissance, right? Because that's when the second real coaster, wars really started up with these brand new Woodies that kind of came out of nowhere, starting with Kings Island and the Racer. So Richard had always thought that this was a great idea and that Ace should be a part of that. And the idea kind of went back and forth. No one really could figure out what what we wanted to do with it. And in 2009, a bunch of industry folks got together and said, okay, it's time to do this because we're getting to a point now where a lot of these rides are nearing the end of their service life, or they've already surpassed their service life, or a lot of these pieces are just ending up in private collections where they'll basically never be seen again. And just ironic considering what some people have, said about us. So our goal was then, starting in 2009, to begin raising the money and to begin building the facility to be able to store and then eventually display these items. And that we've been kind of in that process ever since.
Got it. And I know the land and the building was donated by Larson International, who's,
yes,
I believe, is this adjacent to their headquarters in Plainview?
It's literally right next door. Yeah.
I love that. And so, getting land, getting a facility, these are things that a lot of times museums, they have a major group of investors. They have seed money. They have a national nonprofit or, a wealthy benefactor, a rich, Daddy Warbucks who is going to help kind of create this museum. Is it, I'm not trying to be negative when I say this. Is it fair to say that the National Roller Coaster Museum does not have
that? So go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to add kind of to what Kris had said earlier, is that the closest parallel to what our organization is trying to do would be the various carousel museums that are across America that you may know. There's one in New England, in Bristol, Connecticut. There's the one in Sandusky, Ohio. There are several of these. I think going along with that is that over the course of time, carousels became, known as American folk art. So they became collectible pieces, thereby fall under the category of art. And with art comes endowment, comes old money, comes a lot of that, we're carving a new niche here with this, because the roller coaster really has its place in American culture going back to the late 1900s. And so we're just trying to tell that story. So what we're doing is new because it hasn't been done before on this level, whereas there are other art museums or are other carousel museums. So going back to what you're saying about getting the building and getting that initial financial bump. So, I mean, we've been up against it. So having that donation. So when people ask the question, why is it in Plainview, Texas? Why is it in Plainview, Texas? I'm never going to go there. It's 5 hours from Dallas. Kris knows that very well because he makes a drive about every other month.
Just last weekend, actually.
Yeah. So, and we hosted a fair number of park owners there for an event, right? So, it's easy to make these statements, but when you look at a balance sheet and you look at what it actually costs to do what we are doing, it's not that easy, right? It's easy to have ideas. It's harder to execute. And that's something that, we're very transparent and open about, and explaining what we're doing and where we're going. And we truly are, and we'll talk more about it as we go through tonight's interviews, but we're truly entering the home stretch. We have the collection built. We have the story ready to tell. We just have to put the ribbon on the package right now. So, Kris,
for sure,
take from there.
I couldn't make it any better than that, quite honestly. The only thing I would say is, Mark mentioned like a carousel museum. I would also liken it to train enthusiasts, actual, train enthusiasts. You get a lot of them that want to save a locomotive, right? Well, it takes millions of dollars to restore and bring back. I mean, I remember going to the Santa Clara County Fair when I was a kid and seeing a Southern Pacific locomotive that used to be running at the line from San Francisco to San Jose, and they said they were going to restore it. That was 30 years ago. Okay. It's just now been moved in pieces to its final restoration point in Niles, just a few minutes north of San Jose. So it takes a long time when it's something really niche-y. When you're in that niche, you feel like everybody knows this and everybody obviously has to be supporting this, because why wouldn't they? But you're in that sort of eye of the storm. But for the most part, roller coasters, they're not quite at that point yet where people say they're an art form. we're getting there, but they're not quite there the same place as like a carousel is. So that's kind of been the intrinsic struggle is, again, not having, let's just say, a very wealthy benefactor who wants to come in and say, I'd like to have a museum named after me, and here's X amount of dollars. Go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We're just not there. So every little piece that people support us with, whether it be by buying merchandise in our gift shop, which is also available online, or by just making a contribution at a local ACE event, and all those little pieces, they eventually start adding up and allow us to do what we're doing, which is saving some of these iconic pieces of history from the scrapyard, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you talk about the niche community. As a podcast host in that niche community, it is very easy to kind of believe your own echo chamber, but you're right. In the grand scheme of things, there it is kind of an echo chamber where we are in our little small corner of theme park world, theme park internet, and all of these people who, again, I'm not being negative to our listening audience, but who think they know everything when it comes to, you know, why doesn't the National Roller Coaster Museum open? And then why isn't every coaster that's built a 300-foot dive coaster, giga coaster? Why aren't there 17 inversions? Why isn't this every year? Like, it's we don't get it necessarily. I want to talk though a little bit about the collection process. I know
Andrew,
I'm looking
can I
at
interrupt you real quick?
yes.
I'm noticing I'm not seeing the thing bouncing on my bar. Are you still recording me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I'll
No,
shut
you're
up.
good.
And
No, you're good.
Sorry, I totally interrupted your flow.
Andrew, if I was going to add one other thing, is just with regard, if we're going to use carousel, let's say as an example, there's limited. It's sort of like when a team member at a company hits their ceiling. The carousel kind of hit its ceiling by 1920. There really isn't a lot of technology that's going to take it in a different direction. So thereby, it became when, say, PTC stopped producing new carousels in 1932 after the Great Depression, and we went into more of the era of aluminum and then fiberglass figures because it was more affordable to create those. The old wooden carousel became an art form, and that's what led to the museums and the collections and these horses selling for six figures, which is bonkers. With roller coasters, I think because technology has continued with them through time, and we've had advancements, whether it's a new launch system or it's a new style of riding or it's a new, the genius, the marketing departments that could take the concepts and sell them to the public, right? It's easy to forget where this all came from. And that is really at the heart and soul of what we're doing here, is that without a ride like a Switchback Railway in the early 20th century, there would be no Millennium Force. So that's really what we're doing here. And I think that's a big difference when people bring up carousels and carousel museums and what we're doing. We're telling that story of advancement of technology, of how we got to where we are now, because it wasn't just, snap a finger and Werner Stengel was, here you go. Let's, and calculating all these forces, and Anton Schwarzkopf able to do a portable roller coaster with 5 loops on it. That doesn't happen overnight. That happens because John Miller invented the upstop wheel way back when. So there's a lot at play here that, that's tied into the story we're telling and tied into why this is truly a first of its kind and why we feel it's so important.
For sure. Let's talk about the collection process. I know there was on the timeline on the Coaster Museum website, which again, rollercoastermuseum.org. Be sure to go check that out. It looks like 2012. Was this the first donation to the Roller Coaster Museum? Was the Matterhorn bobsled at Disneyland?
Let's say it was one of the most significant ones. And as the person who updates the website, we got a lot to work on the timeline. I've got some stuff that we still need to add. We've got about 75 different ride vehicles right now. So, but 2012 is a big year for us because, it's pretty rare to see any Disney vehicle outside of the Disney universe, right? And we have 3. So that's pretty incredible to think. 1 from Disneyland, 2 from Disney World.
What are the other 2 coasters? Am I missing? Maybe is that...
So they're actually not even coasters. There's Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters, the bumper cars that shot hard balls at other people. That's terrifying. And then the noise they made was ridiculous. And then we have Dopey from Snow White's Scary Adventures, the dark ride. We have just at the top of that, which is,
That was at
of course,
Magic Kingdom, right?
yeah. And
That
if
was
you wanted to ride that car, of course you wanted Dopey. Who
yeah.
didn't want to ride with Dopey?
It's a
And
good
and the
point.
to clear, the Buzz Lightyear attraction was at Disney Quest. It wasn't one of the
Yeah,
Magic Kingdom attractions. So
got it. That's what is, when you're getting one of these 70 plus ride vehicles, what is it like? Are you working with the parks? Do you have people reach out to you? Do you reach out to them? What is the acquisition process like?
Uh, well, I can tell you without telling you the vehicle just yet, but that we just received two new vehicles actually just this week that we're going to be releasing very soon. That kind of came in sort of different and unique ways. The first one came as a result of a conversation at IAPA where we had asked a manufacturer if it was possible to restore a vehicle back to its original condition because it had been modified so many times, it had been repainted. And we thought, well, why don't we just show it as a comparison to another piece that we have in the facility? And so we were able to do that, and that vehicle arrived. So that's part of the acquisition process. The other part is, yeah, we're always listening and watching the rumor mills to see what may or may not be coming out. We quietly reach out to parks in many cases, like King Ka. That was an 8-month journey from the moment that we first reached out to the park to the point that it finally arrived at the museum. So we had just kind of worked our contacts. All of us on the board work on in the industry. So we are a worldwide industry, but as Mark will attest to this, we're a very small family and we talk a lot. So we're always just chatting with each other and just seeing what might be out there. So we're either actively going out and trying to see what's going on in terms of acquisitions, but we're also have times where parks and facilities will reach out to us and say, hey, would you be interested in this? And we take a vote on the board. Is it historic? Is it noteworthy? And then kind of go from there. So that's
Okay.
actually how the second one that arrived this week came to us. It was kind of a dual thing. We reached out and they reached out to us as well.
Okay. So, and I guess historic and noteworthy, those are the buzzwords. Like, you're not just going to grab any roller coaster that happens to close for one reason or another. There's got to be maybe some set of criteria here, or maybe not so much. What's kind of is it just those two buzzwords, the historic and noteworthy?
well, there's also the element of space because we do not have infinite space in our facilities. We have a storage facility and then we have the main museum space. But yes, of some significance certainly is going to influence votes on the board. And added to that, to speak of the board, we have, every member's got different background. Most of us work in the industry, but we've got people with legal background. We've got people with finance background. So it's really one of those, like we balance each other out, but everyone is in tune with the industry. So more times than not, it's all yay or all nay. It's rare that there's someone very passionate about a piece that everyone else is like, what are you crazy? Like, why do we need this? But there is nuance to it, but certainly, we don't need 18 of the same ride vehicle side by side just to say, hey, we have this from this ride. It's more, we're trying to, again, going back to telling that story and illustrate, the advancements in technology and where these rides all fell together. That's really the goal of what we're doing.
Yeah. I've got to ask, and I was telling my wife that I was going to interview you guys tonight, and she's not somebody who's really into the whole coaster and enthusiast space. I was like, if you wanted to ask a question to board members of the National Roller Coaster Museum, what would you ask them? And she said, I want to know the oldest coaster or car, ride vehicle, coaster train, whatever you have. What is the oldest ride vehicle that you guys have in the collection?
I believe for a long time it was the 1918 Rocky Springs side friction car that we rescued out of a garage in Flint, Michigan.
Okay.
But I believe that has been eclipsed now by an 1893 side friction that we have. I cannot recall exactly where it's from. And a little bit of breaking news for you. We may have another one from the 1800s showing up very soon from an undisclosed location. that we're going to be promoting about very soon as well. It's coming from overseas, actually.
Love that. Awesome. And what's the square footage that we're working with here? You mentioned you don't have infinite space, but there's got to be enough space to include 70 plus ride vehicles, plus the buzz bar that you guys have, plus the archives, plus. What kind of square footage are you guys working with in Plainview?
Right now, the building is at 20,000 square feet. That, of course, includes bathrooms, the aforementioned buzz bar, the small archive space that we have, which is just kind of like a small little room that we need to actually expand upon, which we're working on right now. But not all the vehicles are actually in there. There's a separate storage facility that's nearby that we store some of we call it cold storage, where some of the vehicles that maybe we don't necessarily have a use for right now, or we're still trying to debate whether or not it actually needs to be part of that story, that we sort of put in there just to be sure that we have them, they're secure, but where do they fit in the grand scheme of our storyline?
Yeah, Andrew, if you picture, it's sort of like going to a restaurant that has a menu that has 42 pages, right? It's overwhelming. You're not going to end up picking what you want, and it's not a good experience. We could jam pack this building with every ride vehicle we have, but ultimately we don't want it. We want it to look like it's strategically designed, that there's creative intent and we're telling that story, and people come away from the experience with something, they learned something that they didn't know when they walked in the building. We don't want it to look like a hoard, essentially, is where we're going. So there's walking that fine line. It's like with everything else, it's a never say never type thing. I mean, there could be rotating exhibits at one point. There could be, we don't know yet, but the bottom line is we want to rescue historically significant ride, significantly historic ride vehicles and save them essentially and add them to what we're doing here. So it's but we don't want to overwhelm people as well.
Understood. I want to give you guys the opportunity to kind of not shut down the rumor mill or dunk on the enthusiast who thinks they know everything. When somebody is online and they're like, the Coaster Museum A will never open, B is a private collection, C, whatever other negative thing people say online just to have people click. What are the things that people aren't considering when it comes to what it takes to get this museum open? I know there's electrical, there's plumbing, there is, infrastructure that is, probably either in not quite in place or is a work in progress. Like, what are some other things in addition to infrastructure that are kind of not holding you guys back, but when you open this, you want it to be the best experience possible. What are some of those things right now that Joe Q Public? I don't like using the phrase GP as a negative term because I can't stand that. But the Joe Q Public who's like, well, this is this and this is that, and I have it on good authority because I'm on the internet. Like, what would you tell them that is like things that are needed to happen in order to get the Coaster Museum open?
Get involved. If you're so good and if you feel like you can do it better, we always welcome volunteers. Come on out to Plainview. Come out and clean the facility. Come out and go raise some money or write some grants for us. We never will say no to that. It's like you said, it's really easy to criticize and not do anything about it or not have the experience behind it. Come gain the experience. You want, if you're so sure, put your money where your mouth is, man. Let's see it. Another one that I'll be honest, I didn't even think of, code, right? That for a certain amount of people in that building, you have to have X amount of toilets. You have to have X amount of emergency exits. You have to have all sorts of plumbing systems in place. You have to figure out drainage. You have to figure out air conditioning. There's HVAC, all those different things that you don't think about because it's already installed in your house, right? Unless you've basically designed your own home, it kind of comes already included. They don't make roller coaster museums from the Sears catalog, and I totally just aged myself there by saying that.
You're fine.
And
Okay.
and by the way, there's a thing called ongoing maintenance, which people may or may not be aware of. I see comments online that we should be opening fully operational roller coasters out in the track garden. There should be a wood coaster and a steel coaster, so we can illustrate that.
Sure.
And there's a thing called ongoing maintenance. There's a thing called, the
Insurance.
insurance. There's a thing called cost to operate. There's a thing called installing, foundations. We're familiar with that. We just put up a corkscrew. That's going to become the new marquee that guests are going to be able to drive under. It's there. It's freshly painted. It looks amazing. It's off the second ever modern looping roller coaster, so it's historically significant. It follows the story that we're telling. It's if Kris and I took everything personally or to heart, and the board took everything personally and to heart that we read, it would be pretty hard to get motivated about this. So it's like anything else in life, Andrew. You have to let it slide, and just put facts out there. And in today's day and age of interwebs and socials and all that, it just is what it is. Everybody's smarter than you, and because they read it somewhere online or heard it from the Dippin' Dots guy, the way that goes.
Of course. Well, again, podcast host in a very niche community. Totally get it. 100%. Mm-hmm. You did mention, though, the Canopy Corkscrew. We got to talk about this because this is one of the Roller Coaster Museum's kind of most recent crowning achievements. You mentioned it is going to be, people are going to drive under this, but let's talk about the process of, getting this track, restoring it, getting it painted. I think it was Bainham Painting who came in and kind of restored it to that original bluish, greenish, turquoise color.
Well, I should correct you. Technically, that's not the original color. The original color was black. Remind me the support names, what those are called.
I don't. I call them lattice supports. I know we get. Someone explained to us what they were called. Mansplained up
awesome
to us
name,
or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was able to somehow figure out that it was the Carolina Cyclone was that crossover ride where they went away from the lattice and they went to columns only. And then if this is how I spend my time, at night, you can look at the corkscrew track and see that there are more track ties, so that they compensated for the lack of that over the top lattice support by adding more track ties. At least that's how it appeared. But
Kris, I think you're muted. I don't know what.
Wait, better.
There you go.
Better. There you go.
So she was originally black and yellow, but when she went to Canopy originally, but they painted it that the white and blue. The reason we didn't go back to that, and a lot of people have asked about that online, is because that's going to require a primer first, which takes a significant amount of man hours and days and resources. And then you got to paint it back to that color as well. And when you do, that black is going to fade so quickly in that West Texas sun. Ooh, my goodness, it'll look terrible within a year. So by keeping it with that color there and giving it a nice clear coat, man, that thing's going to shine for years to come. And it matches the aesthetic of the outside of the museum as well. So it still looks great. And it's going to look amazing when you drive up to it, get your photo taken next to it. It's really a cool opportunity to be that close to a coaster track that normally you wouldn't get the opportunity to do.
100%.
And going back to what you were saying, big shout out to Bainham Solutions for donating the materials and labor to paint the corkscrew, and then Northwest Coasters donated services to actually erect it. Gary Slade from Amusement Today was out there with them during that period. It was about a 1 to 2 weeks. Kris, was it? I don't know.
It was supposed to be 3 days, but it turned into about a week and a half of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing to remember about these rides from the 70s, from Aero Development, it was at the time, these are all welded together. These track sections were not bolted like their later rides, like the Great American Scream Machine at Great Adventure and Viper at Magic Mountain. So a little tricky, not so hard to take apart, you just cut it apart, a little tricky to put them back together. So,
and they were never really designed to move. And
right.
This thing moved 4 times. So wow. It's got some marks. It's got some spots in it where you kind of go, oh, yeah, I can see that. Because once you start slicing something that many times, eventually stuff doesn't fit exactly the way it was supposed to, or the way it did when it left the factory in Mountain View in 1975.
Yeah.
Wild. I love it. And and then going back to, I want to talk a little bit more again. Roller Coaster Museum's been in the news. We have those 4 new attractions. You had a kind of a fundraising campaign where supporters could put their name on a coaster car. Is it true that Time Warp had one person? Is
Yes,
that
it's
correct?
absolutely true. It's
Okay.
absolutely true that there was one person. Thank you for donating $100 to help us get Time Warp over there, and the park helped us out as well with that. So,
Oh,
but yes, one person.
it's okay. I'm surprised personally, as someone who Carowinds again is in my backyard. I'm surprised Nighthawk had more than one person. So we're good.
Oh, that hurts me because I mean I grew up watching that thing being built in Santa Clara as the prototype flying coaster. So yeah, with all prototypes, you improve upon the design eventually. And so now that
Eventually.
we have Nighthawk slash Stealth at the museum, you can now see the progression between that and then the Valeri right next to it. And like Mark had said, you can see how different companies engineered it in a different way and made it work for them. And that's a really cool learning experience, I think, for anybody who
Yeah.
comes to visit.
And then people who are familiar with European parks or the advancements in technology, without Stealth, that was a shared R&D project with then Paramount Parks. We probably would not have FLY at Phantasialand, which is
Mm-hmm.
without a doubt the greatest flying coaster ever created. From how it operates and the unique loading situation where the seats basically pivot 45 degrees, so you're sitting upright and then you turn into the flying position. It's just wild. And the two rides are only about a quarter century apart. I mean, it's not that again is expanding on that story. And no, we do
Yes.
not want an FLY car. We want that ride to operate for many, many years to go. So,
And then
And
we
that
want
goes, by the
more.
way, for any vehicle. Like the
yeah,
people always ask, well, what vehicle do you want next? And the answer is, I don't want any. None of
yeah,
us on the board want any more vehicles because that means that they're still out there in the world, thrilling people and having fun. We're just sort of that filter to stop vehicles from being disappeared forever. But we'd much rather have them continue to operate for many years to come.
yeah.
Yes. And we need more modern Vekoma flying coasters like FLY. So I totally get that. I also want to talk about King Dakar because you did something I think that was pretty unique. And again, going back to the corners of theme park internet, you got Scott Schaefer from Upstop, you got Zooter Loopers, and you got Hollywood Studios, I believe is the guy's name. And they kind of like assembly line drove this thing from New Jersey to Texas and then blogged and vlogged and created content the whole way. Kris, I know you're again kind of on the marketing side of the roller coaster museum itself. How do you get guys like Scott and Brian and I don't know Collywood's first name. I'm assuming it's Colin, but I'm
Colin.
probably
Yeah, Colin
so.
and Darius from Hollywood Studios.
How do you get that idea that's like, hey, we have to do this. How can we make this happen? Did they come to you? Did you go to them? How did that whole Teal Team 6 come to life?
That's my name, by the way. I just want to take credit for that. Teal Team 6 was me. The Yeah, they actually approached me and said, "Hey, we see that you're trying to save this King Ka car. Could we get involved?" And I said, "Sure. What are you thinking?" And they said, "Can we drive it?" I said, "What? You want to do what?" So they put out a great proposal for us and said, "Here's what we'll do. We will drive it there. We'll get you the content, get a content on our stuff as well." So it was a win-win situation for everybody. I lost a little bit of hair just from just seeing it like, oh God, please make it, please nobody get hurt. But it worked out just fine. And what a great way to sort of send off this ride where it got to see pieces of other great adventure rides along the way when it went to Frontier City. It was like a little Goodwill ambassador tour, really. And man, that was not an idea I had in my idea of ideas, but it definitely, I think it paid off for the museum and it paid off for the guys too, because they got an opportunity. They've got a story of a lifetime. You drove a freaking King Ka car halfway across the country. Like that's pretty badass in and of itself. And along the way, you got to, really forge some great relationships. And now you've helped save a piece of history at the same time. What a great way to, spend a week in the summer, you
I
know?
love it.
Yeah. And this ride, captured captured the imagination of an entire generation. This is not just another ride. Whether you loved it or didn't love it, or that's irrelevant. It opened as the world's tallest and fastest coaster, and it never let go of its record as tallest coaster in the world from the day it opened in 2005 to the day it closed in 2024. So just, again, Kris is a marketing mastermind, but sometimes these opportunities kind of, they fall right in front of you, and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And you saw the result. I mean, the content spoke for itself. It told the story. And Kris and I were out at the museum for the event, where we had about 24 enthusiasts out there, and most of them, it was their first visit, and we were able to unveil it. And it was a very proud moment, I will say.
I love it. And I know you guys, you do a number of events throughout the year, ACE events and other events that, are, I think there's an admission cost, but they're open to everybody. This is not a private club. This is not a, again, private collection is a term that I've seen on the internet so many times. And every time I see it, Kris, I see your eyes rolling. My eyes are also rolling. It's fine. I get it.
And it's
So,
not rolling, it's just frustration, right? That people you just want to assume this thing is just the way it is because you read about this something on Reddit, when in reality it's like, no, we host people all the time. You just got to ask. That's the first thing. If you're going to be a jerk about it, then no, of course we're not going to just let you come in for a construction preview. But if your group wants to come out and do something at the museum, we're all ears. Larson always has their Christmas party there. We've had the Kiwanis and local Elks Club come out there and check it out. And this year, just a few days ago, we had the family-owned and managed amusement parks come out there. So John Airy Jr. of Fun Spot was out there. Paul and Paula Borkart out of Wonderland was there. Brian Knoble was out there. They all got a chance to see what we're all about. And I think Mark can back this up, because when he came to the museum for the first time, he wasn't a board member at the time. But you get it. You understand then our challenges, but you understand exactly what it is we're trying to do. And It's a lot easier to do that once you've seen it and touched it than by just doing it, sitting online doing nothing. Oh, by the way, we're actually closer to an international airport than Dollywood and Cedar Point. And there's a great family-owned amusement park only an hour up the road on Interstate 27 in Amarillo, plus the biggest steak you'll ever eat. So there's, when is it out there? Yeah, it's out there a little bit, but it's still worth the trip.
as coaster enthusiasts, we will drive, and we will make weird trips. Like we're not against that.
It's doable on a trip too. If you were, say, start at some of the parks in Central Texas in the Metroplex, or even down in San Antonio, work your way north and west, and you can head to Cliffs. And Albuquerque is only about 3.5 hours to the west. And then, Denver's 6 hours, 6.5, 7 hours north. So, I mean, you've got Lakeside, Elitch Gardens, and all the mountain coasters and adventure attractions up there, and an international airport. So, I mean, there are ways you can tie a trip in. And again, we're open. If people want to visit, just reach out to us. Another thing to point out, as board members, and I'm sure Kris has said this in the past, maybe to you, Andrew, but we're all volunteers. We don't get paid for any of this. We get paid with gratitude. We are volunteers. We're passionate, and we come from different walks of life, but we all work in the industry in some way. And we are going to see this across the finish line. It's not an if, it's we are, because we're actively doing it right now. So we're just getting through, some of the less sexy things right now. No one wants to talk about things like HVAC or electrical. They want to talk about, the world's tallest roller coaster vehicle coming across the country in a box truck. That sounds sexier, but that's where we are now. And, we're not stopping until the job's done, and then it's on to the next challenge. So,
right. Not to say that we're not happy about people talking about the sexy stuff, but it's also like Mark said, you got to get through the unsexy stuff to get to the sexy stuff.
Right. Again, the Smithsonian didn't open with one exhibit. Like it is like I think it was the Walt Disney quote. It was like, Disneyland will never be finished. I mean, like a real museum will never be finished, because it will be continuing to grow and continuing to expand. I want to get when the museum officially opens, is what I will call show ready. What is the guest experience going to be like? Is it going to be kind of a timeline walkthrough of here's that 1880s slide friction coaster, here's King Dakar that closed in 2024. Let me take you on a timeline of all of these things. Like what's the guest experience going to be like?
I can actually take you through it right now. So if you just sort of not close your eyes, but just take a listen to what we're going to do. You're going to come off of Highway 194 in Plainview, turn to your left. You're going to go underneath the Canopy Corkscrew into the parking lot. You'll pull into the parking lot. You may see some track pieces a la the Cadillac Ranch sitting out there showing the different types of track as you walk up to the front door. When you walk into the front door, you'll see our lobby and greeting space. And then you're going to start down this path. And the path starts with our oldest vehicles and sort of begins with the history of the roller coaster. So you're literally following the entire timeline. And every step you take, you're taking another step forward in time until eventually you go into our big room, our Mark Moore wing. And that's where you start to see the roaring 20s and you start to see some of the European influence. And as soon as you come underneath our mezzanine, the whole room just opens up. And that's where all the vehicles are, all of the more modern vehicles that tell that story of advancement from the Big Bad Wolf to King Dakar, Montezuma's Revenge, Eurosat, you name it. It's their Fire in the Hole. Every vehicle, as many manufacturers as we can represent. Again, telling each of their stories. And our hope is that we can show POVs of all these rides so you can still experience them even though the rides are no longer with us.
What's
And
your
then you exit through the gift shop.
as any proper
Yeah.
amusement park ride does.
Yes.
Absolutely. What do you think is the like I'm sure there will be people who can, stop and knock this out in call it an hour. There are people who can stay all day. What do you think is the targeted time of someone being on the property?
I pinpoint it somewhere in the 2 hour range. I would say will be the average guest visit experience. Longer if they spend time at the Buzz Bar, obviously, but it's really, I think it's going to be unique to each visitor because if it's an enthusiast coming and it's a destination because it's not near a major hub, they're going to want to maximize the trip and really spend the time and absorb everything. But my hunch is that for a non-enthusiast who's going because they read about it in the media or what have you, they're more likely than not going to come across a ride vehicle that either they go, oh my gosh, I rode this, I sat in that seat 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tear-jerking moment potentially because they're thinking about who they were with. It was their parent or their best friend in high school or what have you. Or on a more broad level, it could just be this reminds me of that ride that I rode at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk way back when, and I haven't thought about this in 35 years, and what wonderful memories. And that's again going back to what the roller coaster represents to American culture, because the roller coaster was born here thanks to LaMarcus Thompson, in the way that we know it. And it evolved, and then it became an export. I mean, you look at a park like Blackpool Pleasure Beach, they were one of the very few European parks that took a deep interest in looking at Coney Island, New York, and traveled to New York and brought that technology to the UK. And that's where that park blew up. And then that led to more parks. So, America, it truly is, when people say like, what's American cuisine? And my answer is usually barbecue because we're a melting pot of everything else. The roller coaster is really an important American innovation that has, really touched on popular culture on so many levels through so many generations. So, that kind of an around the way to answer your question on the length of stay, but I would go back to that 2 hours. I think is going to be about an average visit for someone.
I love
Yeah,
it.
there are some people that have very visceral reactions when they come and visit the facility that they will openly break down because, again, like Mark said, they remember the Big Bad Wolf and they remember riding it as a kid. And maybe that was the ride that finally turned them into an enthusiast. For me, I have a piece of that with the Grease Lightning car, rather sign that's right over our current front entrance, because that's the old tidal wave at Great America. And that's the ride that made me an enthusiast. So always be sure to salute that sign before I leave, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here doing any of this. And then a quick clarification. Yes, we do have a bar made out of old Mean Street pieces.
Of
But
course.
we didn't pay for that. That was all paid, designed, built, and shipped by our good friend Fred Grubb, former CEO of Rocky Mountain Construction. Because if there's two things Fred knows, he knows bars and he knows coasters. So it's incredible. And the seats are actually RMC road wheels that you sit on the side, and they do spin.
Of course. As they should.
Why
Mark,
couldn't they? Yeah.
Mark, I gotta have a real quick sidebar though. You mentioned barbecue. You're sitting on a podcast with a North Carolinian and a Texan.
Oh no.
Where do your barbecue allegiances lie?
Neither.
Smart man.
The only answer is Kansas City.
Okay.
That is the only answer, and it's Char Bar in the Westfield neighborhood of Kansas City is the place that it's perfection. Kansas City is the crossroads of barbecue. It's everything. You want pork, you want beef, you want and I prefer the sauce there. It's more of a tomato based barbecue sauce. It's not the vinegar. It's perfect. And yeah, worlds of fun and barbecue. That is what Kansas City is all about.
Okay, Kris, I saw your eyes roll again. I don't want to.
Yeah. Look, Mark and I, we agree on some things, and we disagree on some things. And unlike other people on the internet, like, yeah, okay, I'll disagree with you, bud, and move on.
Yeah. Well, Kris is really a Californian though. He's not a true Texan, so you want his opinions on smoothies and stuff like that. I think he'd be the guy to go to. But
those are my eyes rolling in. We'll have a talk after this, Mark.
Kris, how do you determine if an avocado is ripe? Just kidding. Anyway,
I know, dude. I don't eat vegetables. Look at me.
I love it. I'm not going to ask the burning question in everyone's mind because you're going to have a podcast with the National Roller Coaster Museum. Everyone on the internet's going to get mad at me when I'm not going to ask this question because I know it's again we don't have an opening date.
Right.
Because there is still so much to do to get this to a point where it is show ready. Because the last thing you want to do is open this when it's not ready. Because if then people will drive or get to Plainview, Texas, however they get to Plainview, Texas. I still haven't figured this out yet. I'm going to look it up eventually. But however they get to
Dude, it's super easy. Just fly into Lubbock, drive 40 minutes north, and you're there. Or fly into Amarillo, drive an hour south. You're there. One interstate. It's as straight as an interstate as you'll ever see.
Yeah.
I love it. So we're not going to ask about the opening date because that's it again.
When it's ready, can ask us. The answer is just simply it's when we have the funds to finish the thing. Yes. Like that's the opening date. So if someone wants to drop $1 million, we're open next year. That's realistically what it would take. If the answer is just like where we're at right now, it's going to come in slow in bits and pieces, but we'll get there.
Right. And again, enthusiasts that may be naysayers on this project, they're open to come and visit during an event, reach out, even not in show mode, quote unquote. When they see what is in there, my jaw was on the ground. I walked in there, it was July of 2024, about 3 months before I was asked to join the board. And I left there 150% understanding what that is now. It's not just a collection. That is, it literally brought chills, when you walk in there and you sense the history. And for me, I'm from a generation, I was born in the mid 70s and I grew up going to parks in the 80s. So much in that museum is what I grew up with, whether it's the Gio Vanola freefall vehicle. I used to ride that at Great Adventure all the time. The bobsled, like those are the rides I grew up with. So I am very old now. I'm going to be hitting 50 next year. And that's what that told me. But Kris is right behind me. That's why he's laughing.
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it really is like, come and see it, versus sit behind your screen and type mean words, which, again, like I said, well, it rolls off us. It's not, it doesn't impact us personally. It's just come and see it, and maybe you'll get more excited. And like Kris said, donate your time, donate some of your checking account, we're open to that. We all do that and we're getting close to the finish line, and that's the goal.
I love it. And I mean, that's why we as Coaster 101, when the 4 coaster cars were like, hey, we need some support. It's like, yeah, absolutely. We will help. We will do this. So And
And
it
we
wasn't.
greatly appreciate it, and we're happy to show everyone who supported each vehicle on this last round of fundraising on those that signage. It's right there for everybody to see,
And including the one name on Time Warp.
including the one name on Time Warp.
Okay, I've got to
Just
ask, and
remember, think of it like if you're a wrestling fan, like I used to be, everybody in the Hall of Fame always retires a baby face. Regardless of how bad a ride may have been,
mhm,
regardless of how awful it doesn't matter. It's in a happy place now.
that's right.
So it's always they're all baby faces in the museum.
And I understood that reference as a wrestling fan, so I get it. I, you guys, you don't want to know what's the next coaster you want to get because you want them to continue operating. I want to take that question and kind of flip it on its head. Obviously, there are roller coasters in the past that have closed around the world, around the United States. Hundreds, if not thousands, of them at this point. Is there a roller coaster or an artifact that you presumably can't get that you really wish would be in the museum?
Oh
I
yeah.
would, yeah, I lean towards Cyclone Racer in Long Beach, California. Just something off that because that truly was like the legendary ride on the West Coast. Um, what do you think, Chris?
I if I could jump into Doc's DeLorean, I would run back and I would grab a track section or car from Thompson's Scenic Railway, the original one at Coney, just to preserve even just a single rail from it would be. Here it is, guys. Here's the first roller coaster. Like there it is. That's it's, like the Constitution. It'll be protected with blast proof glass and everything else. That to me would be like the big acquisition. But of course, can't do that because all these rides are basically torn down in place, and then stuff was built right on top of them. So good luck ever trying to have that. But to me, that would be the one piece I wish we could have.
Okay. And then the last question I've got kind of about the inventory, the show pieces. It's more than just ride vehicles. We've got ride signage. You've got to my understanding, a good number of like coaster blueprints and the like.
Mm-hmm.
What do you? It's a two-part question. What do you think is the most random piece of memorabilia you've got, but also your personal favorite piece of memorabilia or ride vehicle or signage or anything like that?
I don't know if I can get it down to one thing.
Let's hear a couple then.
Yeah, what's your list?
We had a blueprint, or it was more a render that really struck my imagination of an Aero hypercoaster that was fully designed for Six Flags Over Texas and never executed, which I had no idea was even a thing, and that blew my mind. Um, we also have artifacts from non-amusement park, water parks, Wet and Wild in Orlando.
Mhm.
Universal donated a big sign from the black hole, which is spectacular. These are the kind of things like I look at the whole collection like it's so well rounded, right? So
Mhm.
you walk through there and it just sort of it takes you on a journey. It takes you around. I love the signage. Holiday World donated several of the plantons from their old portals. And 3DX Scenic installed new portals in the park this past year between the Christmas, Halloween, and 4th of July section. And Eric Snow at the park organized to have those shipped out to us. So those are going to get eventually put up. And, you know, you walk through there and it's like, oh my gosh, this is just like I'm in a theme park wonderland. We've got everything. But um, it's hard to narrow it down to like just like a top five because it really,
Right.
and Andrew, when you come to visit, I mean, you're not going to be the 2 hour group. You're going to be the 2 day group probably. So, especially if you get in the archive room, you could spend a whole 2 full days, 3 full days in there going through things. So,
I would
Chris, what do you think?
say there's two. Well, there's three things, two things really that stand out to me. One of which we just found when Gary brought it out of the holiest of holies. So there's a major safe inside the archive room for the absolute most important things that cannot in any way or shape or form get harmed. And that was a original share certificate for ownership in Luna Park in Coney Island, we have one of those. That was nuts to see that history right in front of me. Uh, the Spelunker, an original Six Flags Over Texas Spelunker from their dark ride. That fun fact: Over Texas borrowed it for a few months so they could get laser scanned. So that when they built the new Spelunkers, they were historically accurate down to the millimeter. That again, just the museum is a resource for parks as well. We're actually actively working with a park right now because their blueprints are lacking, and we ended up actually having that. So we're actually helping to preserve a coaster right now because of the blueprints that we have at the museum. But for weird or kitschest thing, there's hands down, it's a Six Flags Over Texas Shockwave belt buckle. And I mean that you couldn't get more Texas souvenir if you tried. And it's this brass belt buckle that's got the double loops on it, and it's the most amazing thing ever. I had to go out and find a belt that could actually
Yeah,
accommodate the belt buckle. It was so good.
it would have made Stan Checkett's proud.
Absolutely. I think it would wear it at my wedding.
Yeah. But Andrew, adding to what Chris was just saying, another piece of the museum and our giving back to the industry is, parks reach out to us as a resource. SeaWorld just celebrated their 50th anniversary. The park in San Antonio had an Aero Dynamics log flume that they moved from Boardwalk and Baseball back in the 90s, and they retired the ride. And we loaned them back a log flume boat that they could put in their display. They had like a little museum at SeaWorld San Antonio. It wasn't that park's 50th, but the brand's 50th, starting in Orlando. Starting in California. And then another example, the Orient Express, Worlds of Fun in 2023, they had that pop-up museum that was done. It was brilliant. Such a great idea to utilize the lobby of the theater. I think it was name of the theater in the Scandinavian area. And the Orient Express lead car was front and center as part of that. So
Cool.
Those are cool things.
It is nice that there is it feels like a two-way street between you guys and the industry. Obviously, the industry comes together to help out the Coaster Museum, but the Coaster Museum is also a great resource for the industry as well. So,
And we'd love for the industry to continue and support the museum even more,
Yeah.
whether that be through just the fundraising would be the biggest thing for us, just so that we can continue to kind of harness the momentum that we've got now and get this thing over the finish line.
I meant to also bring up with regard to Canopy Corkscrew, we thank Bainham Solutions and we thank Northwest Coasters. Carl Burney and the ownership group at Canopy Lake must be thanked as well, because they donated the piece and also had one of their maintenance team members out at the site when it was being erected, because he was there when it came down and maintained the ride. So, our hats are off to Carl and the team at Canopy Lake.
I love that. So it's awareness, it's fundraising, and it is helping get that story out. And, we at Coaster 101, we're happy to help with all of those things. So I really appreciate you guys coming on and telling us, again, shutting the naysayers down a little bit, because we gotta fix the internet of coasters and negativity. It's like we talk about roller coasters and theme parks. They're supposed to be fun. Why can't we be positive about them instead of saying,
And part of that, though, is that it's there. Yeah, okay, you can always, if you wanted to, you can focus on that negativity. The vast majority of people online understand what we're doing, right? It's just the ones that want to be negative are the loudest. So the squeaky wheel gets the engagement, it seems. So we know that the people who are out there who want to support us, they're out there. We know that. We hear you. And for those who don't want to, come on out. Challenge you. Come on out and see it for yourself, and then experience what we're all about. And we're happy to change some minds that way. So we've got a lot of big events coming up next year that are public events. You don't have to be ACE members to come to it. And we should have that announcement out probably the next couple of weeks here. So you can get your calendar set, time it with maybe Tormenta opening up at Six Flags Over Texas, and come and experience what all the buzz is about.
All the buzz at the Buzz Bar, built by Fred Grubb. I love it. Kris, Mark, thank you guys so much. If people want to learn more about the National Roller Coaster Museum and Archives / donate to the cause, what's the best way to do that?
Best way through our website, rollercoastermuseum.org. You can also not only donate directly through that, but you can also go to our gift shop, online gift shop, again at rollercoastermuseum.org/shop, and check out all the cool merch that's on there. All the proceeds go right back into the museum and museum construction.
And I'm looking at the website right now. It looks like everything is currently slightly discounted and on sale. So
that is correct. We know that inflation's hitting everybody hard, but we want to make sure that all of our stuff is still affordable and accessible.
And
Absolutely.
it's, we're getting into the holiday season. So rollercoastermuseum.org/store/donate. And after you visit the Roller Coaster Museum website, make sure you visit us, coaster101.com. We try to, again, cover the industry, the news, reviews, interviews, and everything else that ends in EWS, roller coasters and theme parks. Also on all forms of social media at Coaster101. And Kris, we got to talk about the Coaster Museum social media while we're here.
What do you want to know?
Well, I don't need to know anything, but I mean, if people want to follow you, it's just at Coaster Museum, correct?
Well, on Twitter, it's at Coaster Museum. I think on Instagram, we're at Roller Coaster Museum, and then you can Facebook at Roller Coaster Museum, and you'll see us everywhere. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and YouTube as well, where we put up some exclusive content there on some of our archive stuff once we get the films kind of restored. And also, you can watch me wash coaster cars.
There you go.
It's like a White Snake video. It's great.
I think Rachel would have a problem with that.
All right. Anyway, on that note, I gotta wrap this show up. But if you really enjoy this show, consider leaving us a review, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, writing a review, telling your friends to listen, because the more people who continue to listen, we're going to continue to bring you great guests like Kris and Mark. Because again, this industry, it is a small world, and fortunately, we get to be one of the people who gets to bring that small world out to a slightly larger world, and we're very excited we get to do that. Also, we are currently selling calendars to benefit a kid again. They have some great roller coaster photos in them taken by the Coaster 101 team. Head to our website to find out more. We're also coaster101.com/merch for the latest and greatest theme park merchandise or theme park inspired merchandise. And last but certainly not least, a big shout out to Justin Mabry of JM Entertainment for our theme music. We're going to have Justin on the podcast here in a couple of weeks, so we'll get to learn more, and maybe there will be a new theme song by that point. He's excited to do it, and so we're excited too. But like I said, Kris, Mark, thank you guys so much for the time. You're welcome anytime, and here's an idea. Let's do a live podcast recording inside the Roller Coaster Museum sometime in the near future.
You want to do it inside one of the cars?
Don't threaten me with a good time. We're going to make it happen.
Looking forward to it.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. We will talk to you all again soon. See ya.